And today I'm super delighted to have with me several guests that are representing different companies in Berlin, Germany, to talk about new ways of working in games. But before we get into the topic, a quick round of intro. So I'll start maybe from that side. So we have over here Henrik Ruhe. I hope I say it correctly.
That was great, yeah.
Yeah, I tried to say it in the Deutsch way.
It was like super German, yeah.
I'm working on it. Representing for your company Instinct 3, and we will get into that. Then Tatiana Kondratieva, also good friend. We worked together past in the days at Wooga, CEO and founder of Playpack. And over here, Johannes Knopp, also correct in German? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I'm good now. And representing Handwerk as well as a company.
Also very good.
And for myself, I'm Sophie Vaux, and tonight, at least, I'm representing Rise and Play as the founder of Rise and Play, which is a platform on in games to talk about practices, leadership in games, conscious leadership. And I've been also working in games 15 years before, but that's not about me today. So today, we bring to light our guests. So before we start right in the conversation of new work in games, and this is also a good way to introduce what you're doing, your company, I'd like to start with the question why you created your company, because I'm sure some of us have maybe worked in games before, in organization, we've seen the things that were not working, and there's always an intention when you build a new company of to right the wrong of what you've experienced. So I'm really curious to hear as well, as you come up with maybe a different model of work, why you created your company, what was the idea you had in mind, the purpose, and then we can continue the conversation. And I'll start with the middle. Tatiana, I was looking at you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about Playpack and how you started the company? Where were you, I think, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah, sure. Maybe also to give a little background to what I was doing before. I've been working now in gaming for 15 years, like I think also very similar to Sophie's path. And I went all the way from being just a QA specialist to now starting Playpack. And for us, really, it was kind of a combination of the perfect timing, perfect opportunity. And also I felt when we started in 2021, right? It was right after me working as a studio head for Ethermax here in Berlin. So like the knowledge I gathered working for someone else, I thought really that I could translate into my own work culture, into working with people who I know for many, many years, and of course into taking a risk to do something new that I have never done before. And that's how we started Playpack. So myself and my co-founders, we share values from working together for many years in the same industry. And we really align on how we want to do things, and we do things ourselves, right? We are working with our hands. We're not some kind of just managers sitting there looking at others' work. And for us, it was important to give it a try, and bring all the expertise in the field into our own kind of space, into our own little company, little startup. So really the first year of Playpack, I think we were 5 people in the end of the first year, which for me felt amazing, because then I could really try to do everything that I learned at the next level and to align it very well with my values as well.
Mm-hmm. And today you still 5 or?
No, today we're currently 9 people. And I think we're looking to stay this way for at least the next year. And it really feels perfect, because once you build multiple games, and just there is a limit to how much of responsibility one person can take. And we wanted to have this shared ownership, and just people who work with us, that they also can contribute. And I think at the size that we are now, this really transmits very well into the working culture at Playpack.
Mm. And we come back to it later. Just for the context, you are also VC-backed.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving to Handwerk. So also, Jonas, what's your story? How did you build the company? And what was the paradigm or the belief you had when you created the company? When was that?
Yeah, so back in like 2020, during the first lockdowns, Till and Friedrich approached me about trying to make a commercial game. You might remember this, but everyone was thinking they had infinite amounts of time. Yeah, so there was nothing else to do but, work all day. And a couple months later, we had the prototype for the game that's now called Abriss, and we wanted to apply for median board funding. So we went, okay, we need some kind of institution to get this money. And I was reading a lot about the cooperative model, which is in Germany called Genossenschaft, and we talked a lot about it, and we were like, hey, this is a very interesting experiment. So there were already cooperatives in America and France and in Great Britain, like cooperative game studios, and we were like the first ones in Germany to do it. I can talk later about why we really like this, but in the end, it's also just that we wanted to, like, we had all been in normal work, like normal. Till and me had been in like the automobile industry for a bit, and it was clear to us that we never wanted to do any work that was not necessary, right? Like everything we do right now feels like it has to be done. There's never something I do because somebody told me that I have to do it, and I don't really know why I should do it. And it has worked out quite well. We won the German Computer Game Awards for Best Graphics this year, and we're really proud of what we created. Yeah, so we just wanted to have a place to work where we can do what we want, basically.
Mm-hmm. And for the context, how many are you today?
We are 3 people.
Okay, so like small size here. We have small sizes, and maybe as well to understand the definition of what is a cooperative model. Could you describe in a short sentence, or maybe in the nature of what a cooperative model is as a contrast to most companies, maybe in the structure, hierarchy, or even financial model?
Yes, so cooperatives are basically companies that are owned by the workers there. So you can technically also do this with a normal company if you put the in-laws that way, but in a cooperative it's not possible to do it otherwise. So this basically just means everyone who works at Randwerk has a share, and at least one share, and voting is always happening by head count and never by how many shares someone has. That's basically the thing. There's like it's like a very, very old model, and there's a lot of companies in Germany that you wouldn't know that are cooperatives, and it's a very so that's like, it's very participatory in that way. So decisions are always made together, or at least the person who does the decisions is elected. So there's like a certain amount of consent there. Like, I give you the power to make decisions over like, that are about me and my work. And we found that it avoids a lot of conflict, right? People might think, okay, you have to talk all the time, but actually in that way, it's never like you told me to do it and now I have to do it, but I don't want to do it. It's always everybody's on the same page. It's just how it has to be to work.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks. And we'll get back to it as well later. And then last, thank you, Henrik, for holding there. Please also share the story about how you started Instinct 3. I don't know how long ago it was, but as you said as well, you are quite a big number of employees as well. So what's your journey and where are you today?
Yeah, so before I started Instinct 3, I was working in a startup in the field of, I'd say, esports primarily, gaming and esports. So it's like growing industry, but you're still like down there, and your salary is like shitty enough that you can't afford anything except maybe an apartment on the outskirts of Berlin. Like back then they were cheaper than today, but still it was like you're like away from anything. That company grew from, I was the 16th employee to 70 during my time there, and it was obvious that when growing a company like that, the culture is changing. You have new hierarchies which are currently implemented. So I couldn't identify anymore with the way and the decisions that took place regarding how decision-making happened in the company. I'm more like in the creative, impulsive type, and I want to live it in a certain way, also my work environment, coming up with projects and trying to make new things and break new things and blah. So during a time in which I became a father of my newborn child, I felt like changing the shit up, like everything, and I quit. Two of my friends, one of them being a famous German YouTuber, Hand of Blood, joined, and we founded Instinct 3, where we thought we were the freaking rebels and doing everything different. So we started, the three of us, with an agency doing mostly just influencer marketing. And then we came into a scaling phase, especially with the skills of my now co-CEO, Johannes. He's more the structure type. Like I'm the emotional impulsive one. He's like cleaning up the mess I'm leaving behind. So we started growing up to like 50-ish employees and doing all the creative agency work one knows from big creative agencies, doing game releases. Like when there's a Call of Duty in Germany, often we are some kind of involved in the communication. We did some great stuff for the new EAFC and other things. And then we started to come to a place in which we wanted to, that's wild stuff, we founded an esport team because we wanted to do esports again. So we founded a holding, and then we have subsidiaries, Instinct 3, and our esports team, Eintracht Spandau. That's wild. And we did more foundings now with other people. So my job shifted from the one creating things more and more to the one who wants to build an environment in which creative people can create great stuff, but also up-and-coming leaders of the games industry find an environment which is based on values and which is challenging in the sense of doing the best you can for your employees and also for the society in which we're living in. And that's what we're trying up until now, having somewhere between 80 and 90 employees. Like, that's always changing. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So let's get into the topic, because as I hear as well, so either by the size, by the model, maybe also on a common theme, creating the environment for more autonomy, ownership, treating people equally and not like there's a hierarchy of one is better, more intelligent, and well, we've all experienced that kind of structure. And myself as well, talking to quite many founders as well with my own platform, I've noticed also a shift as well for new studios, new founders, creating ways that are more egalitarian, at least in the West. So here we're focused here in Germany, but in the West of Europe. In the ways of working, and I'd like to ask an open question for who wants to take it first. Because that new model is a new model, I think you talked about experiment, but it's not working for everyone. Some like predictability, safety, something that is proven, and I know I don't have to think about what I should do, create my own work. I just want to be told what to do and finish my work at 5 or 6. When you hired people and talk to people who are a fit for your company, what has been your experience? Maybe what are the things you have observed? Is there really a change, or is it fragmented that some people want to move to a new model and a good majority of them are still in structure? I don't know if one of you wants to start with it.
I'm doing probably the most hiring of the people sitting here. So I think one major reason why many people apply for a job in our company, currently we're getting like 300 to 500 applications per month for open positions.
Wow, that's a lot. Yes.
A lot of that is because we are so open in many things. Like we have infinite vacation days as one of the like big things everyone is throwing around, at least around us, but also other things that put in the self-responsibility in the center of all our doing. We want to give our employees all the power we can so they can create their own life and work within. And we did that very purposefully, and we did that like over the years more and more intensely. And now, I gotta say, at least I, as being the CEO, still this, besides my other co-CEO, the sole responsible one for everything that's happening in the company as a whole, I feel like there are limits. There are like, if you give a lot of freedom, you got to be very straightforward with goals. And when goals aren't achieved, you got to take very messy decisions. While if you are very straight and clear and have strict boundaries, then you're setting the boundaries. And if stuff is not working out, you're at least also responsible for that, and you take responsibility and change things. If you are like so open and still in self-responsibility, then the people do everything mostly themselves. They get guidance and support, but it's their way, their road. And if it's not working out, it's challenging.
Anyone wants to?
Yeah, I guess I can follow up, because I think hiring-wise, we're kind of the next in the group here, right? While we do not get 300 applications, we're a very small team, and I don't think it's necessary for us. But of course, as we started the company, we had to go out there, look for people. And as a startup, I guess you also look for people who want to take a risk. Compared to working in a big company, which I do think recently has changed, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. Though what I notice as a pattern is that startups or smaller companies give people opportunities to make things happen, whether it's taking a challenge to really build something from the ground up. So you have these people who are just willing to go all in and try to make it true and bring, in our case, a game to the market that people would play and love. And of course, we will benefit from it as a company, and they individually would benefit from it as an employees. And that, I think, is a big motivation to join. And of course, when you're 10, the amount of opportunities you can offer to every single person who wants to join you, whether it's a more senior or a more junior person, is infinitely higher than in a big structure. You would think, hey, I'll join a company of 1,000 people, and then I can grow to the VP of, I know, engineering. But the truth is that the bigger is the group, the more of the same thing I think each individual has to do. So the variety and the the impact might feel a bit lower than in a smaller group. So I think for us, it was quite noticeable why people would leave and why people would join us. And I think it also helps for them to see that we do respect their opinion, and we try as much as we can, of course, to give them the opportunity to really stand out and deliver on what they want to deliver. And I also noticed recently a pattern that, the industry is always turbulent, but I think now kind of in the world, we do see this, hey, there's crisis, prices are rising, like there is a lot of instability and insecurity. And I think what I, as a founder, can offer to someone who wants to join us is the transparency, right? Like we tell openly, this is how much we have in the bank, this is our goals, this is what we're spending each month. So there is not such an element of surprise as it is if you're, for example, somewhere in a remote studio of a big employer. So I think, in a way, nowadays, startup can be a little bit more stable in terms of predictability than something big. And I can see it also for myself that, yeah, it's stressful to be CEO, but it's also much more relaxing because I can see what's going on, and I have access to all the little cogs to tweak the process. So I think for me, it's a big value, and I hope that for all of us, that's also a shared one.
Thanks. Anything to add?
I think like sometimes the startups are more safe, right? It's like if you are in like a big company, suddenly the company gets bought by another company. You don't even know the real name by that company. The company is owned by 3 other companies you don't know the name of, and they make some structural change, and suddenly you're hang in limbo for half a year, and then the whole department gets, and you didn't do anything wrong. And I think, at least in a startup, even if it's not stable, you kind of know why it's going downhill, right? It's kind of, as you said, the transparency of it. You know you made a mistake, you can live with that mistake. It's not like something just happened and suddenly you're out of work, or, so I think a lot of people, they want to know why their workplace is as it is, and why certain decisions are being made, and why there's a lot of money now or not, right? And I think that's something big companies really can't offer anymore nowadays.
It's a very good point, actually, as you bring it up, because I would use the word here, transparency, because as well, like, what it has maybe felt to not have visibility on the future, the outlook, what's the real situation. And Johannes, you were mentioning, which is a reality in companies. We see the layoffs. I mean, I see every week, or if not days, like new jobs, and people like with a green badge on LinkedIn, like looking for a job. It happens very suddenly, and this is what creates the lack of safety. Yes, you can be financially secure with your full-time job and a company financially safe, but the reality, because you don't have visibility on really what's happening, there's always that little fear inside, is like, it can happen to me and I can just lose my job. So there's not real security. And in this new generation of startup, because it doesn't mean because you're a startup that you will give transparency, but here we talk about with intention of transparency, you are more in control of what's happening with the predictability, right? So for people, it's quite important as well to know in which environment they are and what to expect, and that should never be too much of a surprise. And that's also the new change where I remember as well with work, the belief was people cannot handle it. They will get stressed, the financials, but it's treating really people in an infantile way, childish way. And when you treat employees like child, they will behave as like child. So actually treating everyone equally as adults, being able to handle information, I think this is also a new model where in the end we see it's fine, and actually it helps then people to make good decisions for themselves, and also be aware, is that the place, the environment they want to be in? Like I said, it's not working for everyone. And I want to move a bit forward here with the reflection of those new models, which have different size. We like here 3, 9, and almost 100. We don't have 1,000 here, but that's also part of my question, because I have often that argument and debate. It was an interesting one where I was also presenting a company. There are 40 people where they have also a flat model. And I was challenged by someone successful in games, have exited the company. What is the ROI of that model? So we have never seen that kind of way of working that has translated into being a big behemoth, in a way, of games and making billions. And maybe, is that the question even? So I would like to hear your thoughts and maybe challenges the model you have for wanting to keep things, very relatable, personal, transparent. How do you see the scale for each of you? And is it even a goal to scale that big with that model? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think like part of having a company that is for the people working there first also means not being all about scaling, right? So most billion-dollar companies, they reach that size by investment, basically, that takes years and years and years to pay off, but also like just the people who do these investments, they expect a lot of profit, and that means a lot of the money being made goes to the profits, and that means a lot of the money being made does not go to the people working there. And like at Randwerk, I mean, we're just 3 people, but like all the money that we get, we just put it in our banks and we buy something from it. It's not much, but I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, the more money you give to the people working, the slower you are scaling, and also scaling is like dangerous. So if you're like interested in stability, you're also like really cautious with scaling, right? Because you know, I know some stories like a lot of companies fail at the moment that they try to scale really hard. You know, just suddenly there's 3 times as many people, and the structures are not set up for this, and nobody even knows what that means. And then you need someone else to come in from a different company, and then the culture has changed, and the culture was the thing that was good in the first place, and so on. That's kind of what like the old standard startup kind of also stands for me, right? This, you know, scale quickly, become the only one thing, and leave everyone behind who doesn't, you know, he was unlucky, and that's not what I want to do. I just want to go to work. I just want to make a game and go to work.
Back to the purpose again of why you created Runwork. It's very personal in the end. Further thoughts here?
Yeah, I think, again, we are a VC-backed company, so I think our story is quite different in terms of why we did what we did. We do like making games, but I think it's also like the whole new challenge of can you make a place where a lot of people work with you successful, and I think there are ways to fairly compensate also people in the modern world, like through shares or through evening up the salaries. And I also really adore your dedication to saying, hey, we just want to make games and I want to go to work every day and just work. And I think that's fantastic. And I hope that also is transmitted in a way even to the free-to-play industry. But I think, you know, the scaling has to happen when you have something tangible and when you see, hey, this is what's working, and we really need people to help us push that forward. And I think, kind of to what you say, it's also very important that the culture that you build in the core, when, you know, the company scales, I think that is actually, for me, the biggest risk, that you don't lose the original culture. So like you said before that you left your company because it changed, and I think that's my big fear of what's the best way to scale in a way that the core values stay the same. And not only they stay the same in the core, they also grow and develop to adapt to this whole group of new people who then starts to work together. So I think that's very important. I guess there is a way to address it, whether like going the Supercell way and doing squads that work on individual projects. But I think the key for it is to keep the same values at the core, and that's why people joined in the first place, and that's why we're doing it. And I hope that we manage all to learn and transmit these values to a bigger group as well. Yeah.
Side note, I think it's so impressive that like we three are living like in completely different working realities. So it sounds just so dramatically different. With the 80 to 90 employees that we currently have, that sounds like a lot. I mentioned my past company, which I quit, it was like 70-ish when I left. And it felt like 50-ish was the time in which culture changed a lot, because we had new middle management. And 50 was, at least for me, the time in which I entered the building, and due to fluctuation, I wasn't sure anymore if the person I met in the hallway was like the guy bringing pizza or a colleague. I didn't know anymore. And, but until then, I knew everyone, like new people. I spent like an hour with them the day they entered, because it was just my way of feel like that's my home, kind of. And this is why we thought that with Instinct 3, we stay at 50 employees tops. That's something we still do up until now. We have more employees in total, because some shifted to our holding, some shifted to Eintracht Spandau, or we employed new ones. And this is then was our move to prepare new CEOs for those subsidiaries, so they can build a corporate culture for their then companies the way they want to, but only with, at least currently, especially for Instinct 3, up to 50. So this way we do have more than that. However, those companies can build their own culture. It's not like they need to stay the way Instinct 3 used to be in the very beginning. They can build their own ones. However, there is a certain level of foundation built on at least some feeling of responsibility for also society. It's built on respect and openness for different lifestyles and different kinds of people. And that's the sole thing that I demand from every company and every CEO, to keep that up. And that's the only thing that we do.
It's quite interesting, the model where it's very systematic with the size, whereas things start to get a bit difficult to keep the core of the culture back to the scale. But the way to expand is indeed creating those independent entities, subsidiaries, as you said, and letting, with the same culture, giving them autonomy and ownership on how. But it's a good number, 50 indeed, where I think when it goes beyond, you are going to more matrix organizations if you want to keep everyone under the same umbrella.
Exactly.
So it's an interesting way as well to ensure to stay true to your value and the reasons how you want it to build without limiting yourself to expand. Back to also like what you were mentioning, Tatiana, because the reality. We still live in a capitalistic world, and then it's about growth, and especially when you have to report to stakeholders, people who have invested in you, you have to return something. So for your case, it's with more freedom, but the reality is, and how you expand, how you scale, is I don't know if it's fully in your control, under your control, but this is what can kill, or thrive a company. I've seen in many cases, and this is a very difficult phase. You wanted to add something? Or?
Yeah, I wanted to add something. I think it's very kind of well transmittable from production to scaling a company. And I think I see the same pattern. Like when you're 3 people, the communication is so easy. It's just like click, click, click. You don't even need any meetings or anything. The exchange is easy, right? Then I guess as a product lead or producer, when your team is 10, you can actually very well know what's going on. You put some time into management, into meetings, but it's very controllable. Then okay, you can scale to 20. At the size of 20, you have some overview, but you don't know all the details, right? But when you have 50, even 25, 30, then all the knowledge is lost. So you only have points of control. So then I think as a manager, you're only efficient until the group is small. Then you know everyone, you know what's going on, and then you have this opportunity for collab. And I think the more I see how games are made on the product level, the more I see the correlation between that and how the company actually works as a unit, as an organization.
I'd like to move on to some topics that are not related to necessarily your specific company, but it's more here conversation and maybe debate on progressive ways of working. And it's more from trends I have observed, also talking to multiple companies, again, going in a new paradigm, but it has become a trend. So I want to tackle one theme first, which is about open salaries, transparency. It's one that I've seen actually even when I was running my previous studio. I had employees coming to me, when are we going to open our salaries? Because it's a common practice. Can we do something about it? So it's even requested for some people expecting this in the workplace. And I've also known another company, Lightforge Games, for example, being super open, making a GDC talk about how to really open your salaries and so on. So just here, throwing it in the mix, what do you think about it? If it's something you've been thinking about, or you already have this established in your company?
Okay, I can say that we did think about it. We decided not to go that way because I think it's a privacy matter. Not every single person is comfortable to, say, hey, that's how much I earn. And I think it's still a little bit of a taboo topic, right? Mm-hmm. I can say myself, okay, for me it's not a problem, but I would not be able to say that, hey, everyone is there. And I think as this changes and develops, and I maybe can use Finland as an example where everyone actually knows, hey, that's the range of earnings, then I think we'll also be more open-minded towards that. Our compromise was to just say, hey, that's the burn rate, that's the salary burn rate as a whole But we're lucky that it's quite flat, so there is no outliers. And I wonder how would it be to scale and develop that. But I think we're more in, hey, that's still like privacy is important. And I think once people are comfortable, we might open it up. But for now, we kind of stuck to this. Hey, let's keep it like as an overall number.
Thanks for sharing.
I think, I mean, it's always very easy for me to say things like, that's so easy. No, like you know, I'll say this on TV. I just send everyone 1,600 euros, which is not a lot, but this is what we earn. And we just, like, you know, for us it's very easy, but I would, like, philosophy-wise, I would also think that it's maybe a good idea. Why? Because a culture thing, right? If everybody knows what everyone else earns, or like, you know, this person has the same job as me and this person also, you know, earns the same as me. I think there's also like, you know, the expectation is also that the salaries will not be that different if they are open, you know. I remember situations in my work life where I have had, I was in some break room and I heard some colleagues talking about, oh, this guy, and he also has a car, and, you know, he put the car from, like, it's technically a car, a company car, but, you know, he used it by himself, and so he's like in a different bracket than all of us, but he does less work than us. You know, I just think that's like a point of conflict, I guess. Like, people working there could be discussing, hey, or like wondering, hey, does this person earn more than me, even though that person does the same work or less work or whatever. If you exactly know how much a person gets, you can even do the opposite and be like, hey, you get as much money as me, why am I doing more work than you? Can you please pull your weight? So yeah, I would think, like, I would think it might be good for culture, because it is like the speculation about, does this person earn more than me? That's a point I have seen be like a source of dissent among the workers, basically. So just eliminate this point of conflict.
We're trying to be super transparent in our company, showing like all the fiscal numbers, like every quarter or something, to all employees. Though, to be a bit provocative, I think it's a horrible thing for the culture. I think one shouldn't do that, especially the less the jobs are comparable to each other. The bigger you get, the more you've got difference in seniority, the more things get super complex. We have some employees who have access to salary. Obviously, it's like everything on C-level or people and culture and so on. And if you talk to them, every now and then, knowing that stuff troubles them. It's something that they start thinking about. Like, I know who, like, they're earning that, I'm earning that, like, it feels unfair. That's like, it's nagging on them, on their day-to-day work. And there might be a reason behind that, but it's like they're afraid talking about it, or they're getting angry because they know that number during weekends or shit. And I'm certain that if you're opening up everything, everyone will have like their, like, kind of the hobby of comparing salaries within the company. Like doing that because maybe they feel currently like they want to do that, and then they only know like a fraction of what the other person they're comparing themselves to can do or knows. Or like going one step further, we have like super specialized jobs. Like hiring those people is freaking difficult. And then the only way to get them is having a certain level of salary. But if you're then comparing yourself to those people within the ecosystem of a company, then it feels suddenly like they're almost doing the same job as I am. Why are they earning like $1,000 more than I do? So I think all those very complex things suddenly come together, and the only thing, in my opinion, this kind of knowledge creates is misery.
I love a good debate. Anyone wants to?
I think people know, though. I think everybody knows that like this person earns more than me, but they're not sure how much. And if it would be a thing to be like, yeah, there it is, that's how much that person gets. Why does that person get so much? Well, because nobody else would do it, and it's the only person who can do it. That's why that person gets more than you. If you would have such a specialty, you would get just as much. You can go and get a specialty if you want to.
Well, that would be hurting the feelings like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, that's the thing. You know, the emotional communication needs to happen in that moment, which is also, I guess, very hard once you have 90 people. You know, the whole, you know, I understand that communicating why somebody is earning more than another person is very easy if you know all of these people and you kind of know what they're doing. But if you're just sitting there and you are QA junior and you see somebody who has like a title that says senior associate executive producer or something, and that's a person that earns like 3 times the amount, and you don't really know what the person does, but you're like, does this person like work 3 times more per hour than I do? I don't think so.
But should they care? Like, is it something that you should like make to an active topic for all of your employees to think about and then challenge salaries in different areas? If you do so, you create a culture which will be about, I'm missing the English word, but not gunning the others the money or challenging it all the time.
I mean, that's a question of whether that's a thing that is happening, and I'm pretty sure there's probably have been studies about this, and I should maybe look this up afterwards, but I'm pretty sure there's like studies about what happens. And if that's a thing that happens, you know, that's a valid theory, right? Will the culture just suddenly dissolve because people are just starting to compare themselves all the time and it's giving a lot of dissent? Or does it mean, hey, or is it actually nobody cares? Is it gets better because everybody knows everything and everyone has the feeling of, okay, we're communicating here. Nobody is being kept in secret. I know what you are earning and why. And if I am like, you know, if I have any issue with this, this is an issue that I can discuss and then be like, this person earns 3 times as much. I know why that person gets that much, and I know why you made this decision, but it doesn't work out, and I want to tell you this, you know. But I can imagine that, you know, there's always like certain effects and phenomenons that are discussed like this. Hey, maybe people aren't, you know, are being envious. There's like in worker co-ops, there's there was like a, you know, like if everybody owns the company, why isn't suddenly somebody going to be, you know, getting lazy and just being like, oh, I'm doing as little as I can, I'm letting everyone else do it, and then, you know, they just did like studies on it in like big co-ops with like, there's in Spain, there's like one that has 68,000 workers or something. It just doesn't happen in the real world. I know it's a good theory, but this effect doesn't happen. Or like there's this other one of like, you know, home office, right? Before we all like, do you remember how people were talking about home office before the pandemic was happening? People were like, if we send people to home office, almost they will never work. They will just do free time. And like then the pandemic happened and like suddenly people were by accident working more than they were. Like human psychology is just weird. And I guess there will probably be research on whether something like that happens. And I will maybe read up on it. Maybe I'm just wrong and it's exactly what's happening. And once you open up the salaries over a certain size of company culture goes down the drain. Maybe that's just, you know, a thing that's just really happening.
And it's a good debate here because we have different size of companies and as well model here like of share ownership. So you do have control a bit more on that, but also shifting from closed salary to open salary when you are a certain size, it has challenges. And it's always when I ask this question, first it's create a debate which we have had, but it's also always remembering why would you shift even to that model? Why? You know. If nobody is talking about it, maybe there's nothing to fix. So it's just to be aware that it is a topic that comes in conversation by employees. Maybe one day at your company, some people will show up and say, "Hey, what's happening to that?" But being able to answer on the topic, I think it's at least the first thing, and also why you would go for it or not. And it is true. I wanted also to follow up on that. That from the moment you move to opening it, you need to spend a lot of time explaining, and that's a commitment. And again, it goes back to why would you put the investment in the effort? It's not impossible. It has worked for some companies from the beginning, from the genesis, that they work like this, so then they can scale and iterate the system. Moving to it, it's a lot of work, and it can also destroy quickly the culture you try to build because it was not built on those principles. But it's one good to think about because back to the home office, yes, there was a shift and suddenly a hybrid work is like, can I stay at home or can I go back? Do I have to go back to the office? It's conversation that has to happen. Before I get into questions, because we did receive questions, I wanted to ask one last as a time for a debate. Yeah, we have time. Another one, which I will throw as well, because it's one that I've heard of, and I heard a lot of the benefits of it, and then 3 years later, like, I don't know, 4-day work week. So that's also another one that people are starting to talk more about it, not only in games, it's also from tech. I think it's an experiment, it's a social work experiment that is happening at scale, and only time will tell how it works. Wanted to hear just some open thoughts, if, again, you thought about it, you already may be having it, and, well, if you don't, what do you think about it? Who would like to pick that one?
Well,
you go, because we just did our thing.
Also,
yeah.
You can argue with me later. No, we did not do it. I think in principle it's a good movement, but I think it should be then fairly balanced with what you're doing, how you're earning money, and what are your necessary goals. Right? Like as a startup, we want to progress as fast as we can. And I think personally I'm also a workaholic. So I just like to work. I sometimes work on weekends, but I would never ask anyone from my team to do it. I just enjoy it. It's fun. Making games is cool. But what we have in principle is, hey, this is the amount of money that we have now. These are the products that we're building. These are the timelines. This is how much we can do in this period of time. And this is kind of the flow. And for us, so far, the way we've been working with this traditional setup of 5 days, it worked great. And it's also, I think, like compensation-wise, if I was to do 4, maybe I will consider then like how compensation works, simply because we cannot afford the slowdown, which I think it would bring, and maybe you can say, hey, it's actually not true. When people rest, they're more productive. But what we've been practicing is making Fridays a bit shorter, so we usually have a longer meeting and stop not so late. And of course, that if someone just needs a break, right? You say you're stressed, take a break, we'll pay you vacation, no problem. And I would rather have that as a kind of grown-up thing of saying, hey, I'm tired, I need a break. And I noticed that sometimes people also pointed out to myself or to other people in the team that, hey, just go rest for a day or two, come back when you're energized. And I think for us so far, that's been the way to go to. And I think if I say, hey, that's the values, that are my values, I like to work, so I would tend to push for it.
Thanks.
So officially, we have 4 weeks for our weeks.
Great.
Yeah,
Dream.
Paris
4-day
model.
weeks. So, we're like, okay, Fridays we normally don't work Fridays, which means, I'm working in the middle of the night and then on weekends all the time. But this also just means, I'm working on Fridays when it is needed and when something has to be done and so on. But like, it's not like, hey, let's just go to the office on Friday. Let's see what has to be done. We just work on Fridays when we work whenever something needs to be finished, I guess, and that's sometimes also Fridays.
So you're flexible, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
leaving the Friday open.
Yes. So basically, no, we're not. It's like it's important distinction. It's like the rule is Fridays is like it's like a specialty when we do it, right? It's like, and we do it all the time. We do special things all the time. But you know, it's like the normal case is this is not. You know, you can plan to go to the dentist on a Friday. You know that you will have time on a Friday, at noon. You know, that's and then if something has to do, you still go to the dentist. And it's not like I have this time allocated for work. I cannot do something, I don't know, somewhere in the day of this work day. That's the important distinction, I think.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Do you then use any kind of core hours through the week on the rest of the days?
Yeah, like about like something between 10 and 7. Sometimes I stay until 11. Sometimes I only arrive at 3. Sometimes I work Saturday and Sunday, and you know how it is making games. It's not very healthy though. I can understand that, like more regular work, doing like this hour until this hour on this day, is something that is more healthy, and like being less flexible also means being more flexible outside of these hours. But I have worked normal work days. People on Fridays, a lot of the time, they do one meeting where they don't really talk about anything, and then they go home, or like they don't really work that much on Fridays. So you might as well not do the Friday, and people try to do the usual amount of work in the rest of the 4 days, and are really happy to be free on Fridays.
Any last word?
Yeah, I just mentioned when it comes to open salaries, I'm very far away from being pro on that. It doesn't mean I couldn't move over and think it's a good idea. When it comes to 4 days weeks, I am closer to thinking it's cool, and I think for many companies it is. I don't think it's the right thing for ours. I think we're currently running on trying to go a lot into individuality. So work from wherever you want to, work the hours during which time you want to, and you take infinite vacation days whenever you need time off. So we're going very much the individual route. And when it then comes to working hours, I think the right thing would be like how many hours is the right thing for your life to work, very individually. I don't need to go by the plan and do 4-day weeks. If people want to work 5 days and take over hours, I don't like them working too much. But if that's their lifestyle, then and they're feeling healthy and good, I am fine. And on the other side, if you just want to work 12 hours a week because that fits your life right now, and you're doing a great job in 12 hours, then I also don't care.
I love the fact, like with the flexibility, because I recognize that a rigid system with rigid rules is just not reflecting the reality of how most people work. Even some work better at night, but it's not supported by a work system. So I think like the flexibility is a key element. So I'm mindful of the time. We have 5 minutes left, and I will go through some of the questions of the audience. We have questions. Thanks everyone for debating on those topics. I'm sure we can follow up after. One question about the cooperative model. So does the panel believe that there is a limit to the model of a cooperative in terms of decision-making process? So since it's your model of your company, maybe I'll leave that to Tatiana or Enric if you have thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think it works great especially in the beginning, right? And there's this whole concept of teal organizations. Maybe you read a book about it, where I think it kind of speaks to me quite well, where you give more control to people in a unit, right, and the smaller units, and they self-organize, and they also have more decision power, and then there has to be certain equality in that unit that allows it to function well. I think it's very cool, and I think the challenge comes where you work on a bigger project or in a bigger game that just requires more people and more resources, because there is such a problem as design by committee, and it's cool to offer people to contribute, but eventually a decision has to be made by someone at some point, and not necessarily that you would always 100% agree on what is the best thing. And I think when you set the path, the goals for the company, there has to be some room where you should be able to define what is the best decision. And it can be done by voting, I guess, in the cooperative structure. But I have never seen myself working in a company on a big scale, right? So it's hard for me to say how this experience would be when that happens, because I think different people can chase different goals. And I guess the whole point of a cooperative then is that these goals are defined by the group, right? But how then you keep the values the same, the drive the same, the speed the same, I do not know. And it does sound a little bit scary to me because of that, as I've never had an exposure to this model, right? And I wonder also how actually it works in a company of 16,000 people, as you said before, for
68.
this 68. Yeah, crazy.
That's the biggest one, though. But
We have 3 minutes. Would you like to share something, Henrik, about it?
Just that if there is a company working like that, then it might work.
I mean, because it exists, like not in Germany, but somewhere else, we know about the problems these things can have. There's like, just to answer to you, just because the model of ownership and decision making about like what the company does and who is running the company and so on is democratic does not mean that the game production is run by everyone voting on, I don't know, what the game is to be, because obviously that's bad, right? But you can have all vote, everyone votes. Who is the basically CEO? CEO says, "Hey, this person is art director, this person is game design director," and so on. And then you have just a normal games company. I mean, that would be possible. So that I'm not sure if that exists. But the problems are basically that you can still have normal employees that are not shareholders, and that you can have freelancers and work with agencies and so on. So there's the danger of having like a two-class system, like workers of two classes, right? There's like on some of the bigger cooperatives, there's like, I don't know, 30% of people working there who are not members, but they still work there normally, so they can't decide, which is weird. But, effects like that, that's stuff that happens, but that's also like a result of, I don't know, the financial crisis of 2008. So before then, these things were not as common. And I mean, it does scale up, but there's no example of a game studio of that size. I just wonder if it's...
We will need to wrap up.
Yeah.
We have 1 minute left. But what I would like to do, quick round, not of a sentence, because we will not make it, but maybe a word that comes to mind for you, for what you take away from this conversation today. I'll start with you, Henrik.
I'd say different realities.
Yeah, I think everyone has a different goal, and it's cool to see how how people work to achieve this goal. And I think it also represents the path of one person in the industry, and I think everything can work, and you have to find the one that works for you.
I have thought about scale a lot.
Okay. My word is diversity. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Have a great evening. We still on live?
Great.
We really wrapped it.
It was quick.
I have never done this, like wrapping a TV
Sorry.
live.
I'm sorry.
Oh.